Home is where our stories begin. Our Town, Our Kids works with local Kansas communities to reduce the number of their youth at risk for involvement in the juvenile justice system.
Hi, I'm April Terry. In this video, we will discuss the impact of trauma on the developing brain. It would be impossible to thoroughly explain the ramifications of abuse and neglect in a short clip, so this video will provide an overview of the physical architecture of the developing brain while focusing specifically on the different classifications of stress, broad and specific developmental changes, and alterations to a child's behavioral, social, and emotional functioning. When trauma is endured, for some, reactions are only temporary, whereas for others, they experience prolonged reactions that move from acute symptoms to more severe, while possibly experiencing mental health consequences such as anxiety, substance use disorders, and physical conditions such as headaches and chronic pain. As will be discussed in a future video, a trauma-informed perspective views trauma-related symptoms and behaviors as the individual's best and most resilient attempt to process, manage, and cope with their experiences of trauma. In essence, behaviors that are sometimes referred to as delinquent are simply normal reactions to abnormal situations. Depending on the developmental state and/or processes in play, children, adolescents, and adults will perceive, interpret, and cope with traumatic experiences differently. The type of stress and timing will determine whether there's an impact on the brain. According to the National Scientific Council on the Developing Child, there are 3 classifications of stress. First, there is positive stress that is moderate, brief, and generally a normal part of life, such as changing daycare providers. The second is known as tolerable stress. Tolerable stress includes events that have the potential to alter the developing brain negatively. However, unless it occurs regularly, the brain will have time to recover. An example of tolerable stress may be the death of a loved one. Lastly, toxic stress includes strong, frequent, and prolonged stress responses, such as that caused by chronic neglect. Toxic stress can negatively affect brain development by changing the structure of chemical activity in the emotional and behavioral functioning of the child. For example, healthy brain development may include a crying baby to bring about reliable and appropriate responses from their caregiver, sometimes referred to as serve and return. This strengthens the baby's neural pathways regarding social interactions as a means to getting their physical and emotional needs met. However, if a child lives in a chaotic or threatening world where they endure abuse or no response from their caregiver, their brains become hyper alert for danger or not fully developed. In addition to these broad negative effects on the brain, studies have also found specific areas within normal brain development to be altered and even rewired. While this is not an exhaustive list, here are a few examples of damage. Damage to learning, memory, arousal, emotion and emotion regulation, cognitive abilities, coordination of motor, behavior, and executive functioning, and overactivity when aiding in a determination of whether a stimulus is threatening, just to name a few. The changes in brain structure and chemical activity caused by child maltreatment can have an effect on the child's behavioral, social, and emotional functioning as early childhood experiences serve as the foundation, much like a home, for sturdy and stable brain development later in life. First, abused children may suffer from a persistent fear response. Chronic stress involves an activation of the fear response that, when triggered regularly due to abuse, hinders perception of and response to their environment. During abuse, it may be life-saving and survival-based. However, it becomes faulty later in life as they can no longer differentiate between danger and safety. Second, hyperarousal. Their brain sensitizes the pathways for the fear response and creates memories that automatically trigger that response without conscious thought. They may appear to be more sensitive to nonverbal cues, such as eye contact or a touch on the arm, as they likely misinterpret this. Consumed by nonverbal cues as threats means their brains are less able to interpret and respond to verbal cues. These children may be labeled as learning disabled, but in reality, their brains are developed in a way to constantly be on alert and unable to achieve a regular calm required for active learning. Third, increased internalizing symptoms. Due to altered brain pathways, abused and neglected children are at greater risk for anxiety and depression. Fourth, diminished executive functioning. Executive functioning generally involves the working memory, inhibitory control, and cognitive or mental processing. Brain alterations caused by toxic stress can result in lower academic achievement, intellectual impairment, decreased IQ, and weakened ability to maintain attention. Fifth, delayed developmental milestones. Without caregiver encouragement and opportunities to thrive, these neuronal pathways may wither and die. Children may not achieve developmental milestones. 6, a weakened response to positive feedback. Maltreated children may be less responsive to positive stimuli. Finally, complicated social interactions. Toxic stress can make interacting with others more difficult. They may find it challenging to navigate social situations. They may perceive threats in safe situations, misinterpret their peers' neutral facial expressions as anger, and become aggressive or overly defensive. Overall, typical teen impulsivity may be even more apparent. Their brains have developed to focus on survival at the expense of more advanced thinking. They may be drawn to take risks and experiment with drugs and crime if they live in environments that put them at an increased risk for these behaviors. Chronic abuse can permanently alter the physical architecture of the developing brain, as brains are not just formed, but built over time based on our experiences. A future video will expand upon trauma-informed care, a movement recognizing the impact of abuse and neglect with guidance on how to be culturally responsive. For more information, including all information from this Ignite video, please go to the group's webpage at www.ourtownourkids.org. Thank you.
Our Town, Our Kids is a pilot project funded through the Kansas Department of Corrections, Kansas Advisory Group, and the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. The university group is K-State Juvenile Justice Collaborative, a multidisciplinary team from Kansas State University, Fort Hays State University, and K-State Extension. Ultimately, Our Town, Our Kids aims to empower local communities with a scalable, comprehensive set of tools which will stand as an exemplar to other counties across Kansas and beyond. For more information, please go to our website at ourtownourkids.org or reach out to us directly with questions, concerns, and feedback. Thank you for your time and attention.